I always believed that a carefully crafted moment could define the rest of your life. You plan every detail, day, time, words, gesture so that the memory burns bright forever. That's what I thought until the night I lost the woman I loved more than anything. I'm Nathan Miller, 31, a graphic designer by trade and a hopeless romantic by nature. My heart was set on Maya Cheng, 29, a painter whose canvases captured the hues of human emotion with uncanny precision. We met 3 years ago at an open-air art fair along the waterfront. I was sketching the scene when she paused beside me, peering over my shoulder with a curious smile. We struck up a conversation that stretched into dusk, talking about color theory, coffee roasts, and why love feels like chasing sunlight. From that night on, I knew my life had become a story worth telling. That story was supposed to reach its most glorious climax on a chilly autumn evening at Celeste Terrace, the glass-encased rooftop lounge that hovered above the city skyline like a dream. But in one fractured moment, my perfect plan unraveled. Maya and I built our relationship on small things. Weeknight dinners, she cooked miso soup and tofu stir-fry, followed by me fumbling through her favorite jazz albums. Lazy Sunday mornings, sprawled on the couch, reading books in companionable silence. The first time she gently corrected my pronunciation of a French painter's name. The comfort in that correction was deeper than any compliment. We shared hopes, traveling to Kyoto during cherry blossom season, adopting a rescue dog named Pippin, filling our lives with art and laughter. We confided our fears, Maja's anxiety in crowds, my worrying I wasn't ambitious enough. We served as each other's mirror and anchor. One October afternoon, as leaves turned rust and gold, she showed me her new studio space, a converted loft with large windows overlooking the harbor. Sunlight streamed in, illuminating the dust motes like fireflies. She turned to me, eyes brimming with excitement, and whispered, "This is where I'll finally finish my series on human resilience." In that moment, I knew I wanted to be part of her story forever. I began planning the proposal 3 months in advance. I scoured antique shops for a ring, something elegant yet enduring. I found a silver band, set with a pear-shaped sapphire, whose deep blue reminded me of Maja's eyes at twilight. It was perfect. Next, I secured the date, November 12th, a clear forecast, and just before the holiday rush. I emailed Celeste Terrace's manager, requesting our favorite table and the Terrace's sole violinist, whose rendition of Clair de Lune had scored so many of our dates. I arranged discreet lighting lanterns strung overhead, flickering like stars. I rehearsed the words in private. "Maya, you are my color, my melody, my home. Will you marry me?" Each rehearsal etched the ring's promise into my heart. I crafted decoy plans, to invites to a business mixer, brunch with friends so she'd have no inkling of the evening's true purpose. At noon on the day, I texted her. "Got caught up at a client meeting. Maybe late for our reservation." "Sorry," she replied with a laughing emoji, and "No worries, I'll wait." Everything was set. I arrived at Celeste Terrace at 6:50 p.m. The sky was a perfect gradient of coral fading into indigo. I checked my reflection in the glass wall, smoothing my shirt, one had picked specifically for its deep navy hue to complement her emerald dress. When Maya walked in, her auburn hair shimmered under the rooftop lights, and her smile lit up the room. She wore a silver crescent moon necklace I'd given her on our anniversary, the charm catching each flicker of candlelight. We were seated at a secluded corner table draped in white linen. Candles flickered between rose petals, and the first violin note drifted through the air. I ordered sparkling rose and watched Maja's eyes light up as she lifted her glass. We reminisced about our first date, how she'd spilled her latte on my sketchbook, how we'd laughed until our sides hurt. We toasted to ourselves, to laughter, to love. I reached for my jacket pocket, fingers brushing the ring box. My heart thundered with anticipation. Then Maya excused herself to the restroom. I waited, counting tiles in the mosaic floor and picturing the question on my lips. 5 minutes, 10, 15. I rose, unease knotting in my gut. I walked toward the mirrored corridor where soft lantern light glowed at floor level. Through a crack in the women's restroom door, I saw movement. A man, tall, dark-haired, wearing a charcoal blazer helmet, a private world with Maya. Her head tilted back as he spoke, and she laughed, pressing close into him. Her hands rested on his chest. A lock of her auburn hair brushed his temple. Their intimacy burned through the glass panel between us. Everything slowed, my breath, my vision, my heartbeat. The ring box slipped from my grasp, thudding against the marble as the final chord of Clair de Lune rang out overhead. Betrayal coursed through me like ice. I backed away and fled. The violinist's melody trailed me into the night until I disappeared around a corner, swallowed by the city's chill. The taxi ride home blurred streetlights and shattered dreams. I cradled the ring box in my lap, the sapphire glinting like an accusing eye. Back at the loft, I found it empty. Maya and her mystery man gone. The living room's exposed brick walls, once comforting, felt cold and hollow. My footsteps echoed as I crossed to the studio corner where her canvases stood. Each painting vibrant abstracts and tender portraits stared back with accusing splashes of color. I retreated to the bedroom, the ring box open on the pillow. The satin lining cradled nothing. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling until dawn threatened to break. The ring's weight morphed into a burden I couldn't bear. At work the next day, I stared at blank screens, numb. My colleagues asked if I was okay. I forced a smile and whispered, fine. I was anything but. My desk filled with half-finished designs. Photoshop files piled up, untouched. I logged long hours to avoid returning home. But exhaustion chased me back to the loft's emptiness each night. I deleted Maja's text snippets of apology, pleas for forgiveness one by one. Each deletion pierced deeper than her betrayal. Friends rallied. Mark took me for after-work drinks. Lisa invited me on weekend hikes. Sarah cooked me trays of dumplings. Their kindness was a lifeline, but I clung to my grief, convinced it was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. I wasn't sure what woke me first: the thunder, the blinking streetlight beyond the window, or the sudden realization that I needed answers. By late afternoon of the next day, I could no longer live in limbo. I grabbed my leather jacket, still faintly scented with Maja's perfume from countless embraces, and headed back to Celeste Terrace. The heavens opened as I stepped onto the sidewalk. Raindrops pelted me like shards of memory. The rooftop lounge was closed, its windows dark, but I found a side door unlocked. The smell of damp concrete and leftover candle wax greeted me. I ascended the stairs two at a time, adrenaline mixing with the chill. At the top, the glass doors were streaked with rain. I pressed my palm to the cool surface and peered inside. The table with rose petals lay abandoned, a single lantern flickering. My heart lurched. Why? I whispered to the empty room. The violinist's music was gone, replaced by the steady drip of water. I sank to the floor, sliding down until my back hit the wall, and remembered the shape of his hands on her waist, the tilt of her head. Grief gave way to anger so fierce it nearly crushed me. What did I do wrong? I shouted at the sky, but only the rain answered. At that moment, my phone buzzed. A message from Maya. Nathan, I know you're angry. Please, let's talk. I stormed out into the alley below, stomping through rainwater puddles. I thumbed back, fine. Meet me here in 10 minutes. Minutes later, Maya appeared, drenched, mascara streaking her cheeks. She hesitated under the flickering rooftop light. I saw you with him, I said, voice low. In the restroom. I saw everything. Her lips trembled. Nathan, I don't. I pulled out the sapphire ring, the box now waterlogged, dulled. I had a plan. For us. And you, my voice cracked. I dropped the box on the floor. The ring rolled across the tile, catching the lantern's glow. You ruined it. Maja's shoulders shook. I'm sorry. I wish I could undo it. Tears mingled with raindrops on her face. Why? The single word tore from me. She swallowed, searching for words. I felt lost. Everything felt so perfect until it didn't. I panicked. You panicked, I repeated. While I was ready to spend my life making you happy. Her gaze fell. She looked small in the empty lounge. I know I betrayed you. Silence settled between us like a third body. Thunder rumbled in the distance as she stepped closer. Can we start over? She asked softly, voice glimmering with desperation. I shook my head. Not that night. Not like that. Rain water-pooled on the glass floor. In that flooded silence, I realized I didn't want to ask why anymore. I wanted to ask when. When had this affection died? When had she turned away? I left Maya standing in the rainlit room and descended the stairs alone. The rain washed my tears, mingling sorrow and relief. Some part of me recognized that closure awaited me, but not tonight. I refused to speak with her again until I found the broken pieces of myself. Back at the loft, I tossed my jacket over a chair and surveyed the space we once shared. Her brushes still lay on the windowsill, half crusted with drying paint. Her canvases leaned against the walls, unfinished like our story. I picked up one small painting, a watercolor of two figures under an umbrella in the rain. I remembered her painting it on our first stormy date, laughing when a drop landed on the paper. I placed it face down and turned away. That night, I barely slept. My dreams were haunted by visions of Maja's laughter, her betrayal, and the radiant moment I had planned. I awoke at dawn, heart pounding, to write her a message: "We need space. I'm moving out." My fingers hovered over the send button for 5 minutes, then I pressed send. She replied almost instantly, "Please don't go. Don't leave me alone with my mistakes." Her words rippled through me. I felt nothing. No comfort, no warmth, just a profound emptiness. I packed my essentials that morning: my laptop, sketchbook, a few favorite books, and the unopened ring in its box. I set a moving sail for the following weekend, listing our shared furniture and love seat. I called the new roommate an acquaintance from college and told him I'd need a half bedroom by the end of the week. The days blurred. Each morning I walked past Maja's old studio, now locked. I resisted the urge to peer through the window. At work, I buried myself in layouts, losing hours inside Pantone swatches and vector lines. My boss, concerned, asked if I needed time off. I shook my head. I needed normalcy, not escape. A week after I left, I visited the little cafe where Maya and I used to have weekend lattes. The bell above the door chimed as I entered. The barista, Elaine, recognized me and offered a sympathetic smile. She placed my usual double espresso with oat milk on the counter. "Mind if I sit?" I asked, nodding to a corner table. Elaine paused, then gestured. "Go ahead, Nathan." The cafe simmered with Sunday chatter, friends laughing, couples reading, someone strumming softly on an unplugged guitar. I inhaled the aroma of roasted beans and felt the first tingle of calm in days. I opened my sketchbook and began to draw. Not planned graphics or client work, just freehand sketches of the cafe's interior, the sunlit window, a potted fern, Elaine's gentle face. With each stroke, my chest loosened. Creating felt honest, tangible, and like betrayal. An hour later, Elaine approached. "Hey, here," she said, setting down a small notepad. "For you." On it was a message written in her neat script. "Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without pain." I blinked back gratitude. I realized then that my path forward wouldn't be linear. But the stroke of a pen had made me believe I could start again. I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Montero, a therapist recommended by a friend. In her warmly lit office, walls lined with books and soft pastels, I sat on a plum-colored sofa. For the first time, I didn't offer an excuse for feeling broken. I simply said, "I was betrayed. I'm lost." She nodded without judgment. "Tell me about your grief," she invited. I spoke of the planned proposal, the sapphire ring, the rooftop crescendo. I spoke of seeing Maya with another man in a reflection. My voice trembled as I described the fallout, leaving our home, surrendering our shared life. And I spoke of my father, the man who taught me to catch a baseball glove first, who told me that forgiveness was a gift I gave myself. My father had passed 2 years earlier, and in Maja's betrayal, I had replayed every scene of loss, feeling abandoned all over again. Dr. Montero listened, occasionally asking soft questions. "What did that moment mean to you? What do you hope for now?" By the end of the session, I felt lighter. Not healed, but witnessed. I realized the betrayal was only part of the story. I needed to grieve the end of us, to grieve the loss of trust, before I could rebuild. Over the next months, I rented a sunlit studio apartment a few blocks from the cafe. I filled it with what mattered: my easel and paints, a small desk for client work, a low bookshelf of novels and graphic design tomes. I slept on an air mattress at first, too restless to appreciate a proper bed. I returned to painting. My canvases no longer depicted rain-soaked lovers or rose-petal tables. Instead, they showed abstract storms, whirling grays and muted blues, and small sparks of bright color. Every brushstroke was both confession and release. I also started teaching a Thursday night sketch class at the community center. At first it felt awkward standing in front of curious faces, giving instructions on perspective and shading. But when a young student said, "Thank you, Mr. Miller, this helps me feel less alone," I realized teaching could be healing, too. I closed Maja's final message in my mind. I panicked. I understood panic only after witnessing the aftermath, how a single lapse could devastate years of love. I forgave her, not for her sake, but so I could set that burden down. Forgiveness allowed me to paint again, without her ghost haunting every stroke. Nearly a year after that fateful night, I returned to Celeste Terrace. The rooftop was open again, populated by new patrons and fresh violin music. The rose petals and lanterns were gone, replaced by minimalist decor and lit-up lights. The manager greeted me, back for a visit. I gave a small, wry smile. Just wanted to close the circle. Up on the terrace, I stood at the edge, overlooking the city's twinkling lights. I closed my eyes and imagined Maya beside me, remembered our laughter, then let the memory pass without reaching for it. I whispered to the night air, "Thank you," and "Goodbye." Weeks after revisiting Celeste Terrace, echoes of that night still lingered in my waking hours. I'd built a semblance of normalcy: art classes, freelance projects, weekend gallery visits, but shadows traced my steps. The ring, once a symbol of promise, now lived in a lacquered wooden box on my desk, where I seldom opened it. Instead, I kept my sketchbook, paints, and journals within easy reach, ready to capture any spark of inspiration. One morning, I awoke to a text from Maya, her first in months. "I saw your exhibit tonight. Your work, it's incredible." For a moment, my heart stuttered. Old wounds flickered. But I'd learned the hard way that messages from the past carried their own weight. I replied simply, "Thank you, Maya. I appreciate it." That exchange felt like closing a loop, mutual acknowledgement without expectation. During the fallout, it distanced myself from family gatherings, unable to face questions about Maja's absence. But last holiday season, I attended my sister's wedding. Surrounded by relatives, I saw the importance of connection beyond romantic love. My father, who had passed long before Maya, once told me, "Family is the first gallery where we learn to value art in all forms." I realized he was right. Cousins I hadn't seen in years, my mother beaming in her mint green dress, my sister glowing in bridal white, all reminded me that love took many shapes. After the ceremony, my mother pulled me aside. "You look lighter," she said, eyes glistening. I nodded, realizing it regained a measure of peace that had eluded me for too long. Inspired by teaching teens at the community center, I partnered with my former high school to lead a semester-long graphic arts elective. My aim was simple: show students that creativity could be both refuge and voice. Week by week, I guided them through color theory, typography, and design thinking, but also encouraged them to explore personal narrative stories of triumph, loss, and everything in between. One student, Diego, painted a mural reflecting his immigrant family's journey. Another, Alyssa, created a poster series on mental health awareness. Watching them transform raw emotion into art reminded me of Maja's process and why I'd fallen in love with storytelling in the first place. Through months of subconscious reflection, I discovered that love doesn't end with betrayal, rather, it evolves. My relationship with Maya had been one shade of love: intense, passionate, flawed. Now, my capacity to love had expanded, to family, to students, and to someone new. That someone was Olivia, an art critic I met at a city gallery opening. She asked insightful questions about my Fractured Horizon series, then invited me for coffee to discuss color symbolism. Over lattes, I felt an easy rapport not fueled by grand gestures, but by mutual curiosity and respect. When she reached across the table to touch my sketchbook and trace a line, I realized trust could be gentle. Nearly 18 months after the initial heartbreak, I found myself drawn again to Celeste Terrace, this time with Olivia by my side. I wanted to reclaim the space, not as a site of betrayal, but as a canvas for new memories. We arrived at twilight, the terrace transformed by nude core-potted succulents, Edison bulbs, and art installations by local creatives. Olivia and I strolled along the perimeter, the harbor breeze carrying laughter from neighboring tables. "Do you have stories here?" she asked, peering at the rose petal table I'd once reserved. "I do," I admitted, "but they belong to another time." I led her to a corner where the tiles were dry and unbroken. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out a small sketch. It prepared a watercolor study of this terrace, not in Betrayal's stormy palette, but in soft pastels and hopeful light. I handed it to her. "This is for you. A new memory." Olivia's smile warmed me more than any grand proposal could. Back in my studio apartment, I hung Olivia's gift sketch beside my Fractured Horizons pieces. Together, They formed a diptych, one side ablaze with shattered hues, the other alive with burgeoning dawn. I kept the ring box on my desk, but within it now rested a new token, a simple band of brushed silver, gifted by Olivia on my birthday, symbolizing partnership without expectation. Each morning, I wake and choose my story, sometimes to paint, sometimes to teach, sometimes to write, and always to love gently, consciously, with the knowledge that perfection is not the point. The point is to keep turning pages, to embrace the scars that shape us, and to trust that the next chapter can be beautiful in its own imperfect way.